Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek, the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on volume 15, chapter 6, and I'm just gonna call this the I Hate Rudius saga. I had this chart that I was keeping updated of how many times I hate Rudius right now. Just he keeps doing things that I don't like him doing, and it's frustrating me. I'm getting to the point now where I'm absolutely frustrated by him, but yeah. That aside, really great set of chapters. Honestly, probably the most laid back set of chapters. Not really kind of pushing much here. We're just kind of getting everything prepared. That literally what the chapter title leads you to believe. It's preparations. And I felt like that stuff kind of did bring it a little bit down for me. I'm not super pumped for what's going on right now, but there's a side of me that's okay, I can see Refugent following through with this. Having him actually kill Orsted. But there's a side of me that almost feels like this is a lot of preparation for what could end up being a realization point. He's going to build all this stuff up, go out there thinking he's going to die, and then when he gets there, hopefully, again, this is because my predictions about what's going on, hopefully he has a realization. He realizes, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, and he gets buddy-buddy with Orsted or something like that. But again, like I said, the other side of me is thinking, okay, I can see Refugent following through this, and it probably one of those things where he kills Orsted, but then discovers the truth through Orsted's final words. Oh yeah, you killed me, good job, you're strong, but now the world's done. My journey is over, thank you for ending me, but the world's done. Because I'm gone, the world is done. I could see it being that as well. Probably more so that than anything, because I could see Refugent going that direction of Rudius making a massive mistake. Rudius taking out Orsted and realizing I just screwed up badly. And now for sure I need to go after the man god. But now I don't have literally what could have been my strongest ally, which is Orsted. And it could do that direction. And it's going to be probably turning into one of those things where he's literally going to have to protect himself from the man god's advances. Somebody like Luke. Well, as we find out from these chapters coming up, it doesn't look like it's just Luke. It could be really anybody. But I have this threat now. I need to protect my family and get to him as fast as possible and take him out. But we'll see. But no, thankfully, I didn't have a ton of stuff like I usually do of things I need to go through that I missed. I did have one note that I made during my process of editing and everything like that I sort of didn't get into. But I'm kind of curious at this point why Nanahoshi has not brought up Rudius. And that might be something that could touch into some possible theories around the transportation and the time travel and all that kind of stuff in general. Is why does whenever Nanahoshi talks about the incident, the transportation, why does she never bring up this guy that randomly showed up, the previous Rudius? Yeah, we were out there, I had my, this guy that I liked, and this other guy that was there, and then this guy showed up and pulled one of them away, and he got hit by the truck. Why would you not bring up the one person in that incident that got struck by a truck? You would think that would be kind of something that would be at least passingly talked about. I do kind of wonder if there's two theories. I wonder if, on one hand, she never seen him, and possibly, again, what she's seen there was completely different than what he's seen there, or possibly the Nanahoshi that we have now is in a timeline that Rudius didn't show up. There's two theories there that I think can really kind of explain it, but again, it is kind of odd that she's never explained that in that situation, and it seems like it could be, like we always kind of point out all the oddities that you don't think are significant that could be significant. Anyhow, with all that aside, let's jump into Chapter 6, Preparations. A month passed since Rudius spoke to the man god. Every day was spent preparing for the battle against Orsted. It wouldn't be easy to kill him, and he was the strongest person in the world, far more powerful than Etoff, Pedagus, and Rizurd, of which he couldn't defeat. A fair fight against Orsted was impossible. So, Rudius worked out 3 priorities: creating the magic armor, securing some allies, and finding a strategy that might work. That was another thing that was kind of frustrating, but I understand in these set of chapters is it's a lot of, I could do this, but then it won't work. I will do this, but it won't work. I can do this, but it might not work. It's just constantly, he's strategizing. But at the same time, it's sometimes annoying to have to read. When it came to the magic armor project, based on the diary, it would allow him to have physical power stronger than that of the 7 great powers. With how strong it made his future self, it seemed essential. He planned to build a small cabin on Pedagus' floating fortress, but he denied permission. Instead, he built it in the outskirts of Shiraya. He then got Cliff and Zenoba's assistance on the project, which they both agreed immediately, without details. Cliff would be working on the control system based on their previous prosthesis, and Zenoba would design the armored shell and its propulsion mechanism. The initial description of the project had them both lit with excitement. It didn't take long for them to understand what he had in mind. Power suits weren't really a thing in this world, but boys will be boys no matter where you went. Julie was excited too. No, Julie was excited too. Rudius also asked Sylphie and Roxy for help. Roxy acted as the project overseer and supervisor. Rudius could do that, but he was the only one capable of creating and modifying the ultra-hard plates of rock that would serve as the armor. It took a lot of mana, and he didn't have time to worry about much else. Sylphie was a general assistant to Roxy, handling things wherever she was needed the most. Her knowledge and silent casting of earth magic and magic circles made her able to handle most any task. I do want to note here, it is really nice to see how much Rudius is bringing everybody in the fold. Now, he's not being clear about what's happening, which is, yes, technically the thing that's causing a lot of anxiety for other people, but it is kind of nice that for once, he's not taking it all upon himself. He's taking the end goal task upon himself and not bring anybody into the picture, which he brings up why here in a minute. But it is kind of nice. This is a very rare case of Rudius saying, everybody, I need your help. Roxy, I need your help. Sylphie, I need your help. Cliff, Zenoba, I need your help. It's all for his goal, and again, not being clear about what it's for, but at least getting them in the picture. Sylphie jumped to the opportunity with a big grin on her face. It felt like the first time in a while that he had seen her that happy. She'd probably been keeping some less than happy thoughts to herself recently. That made him feel a little bit more guilty. Yes, she's happy that for once you're asking for help. Once the project was rolling, he started working on finding allies. His initial plan was to face Orsted alone, but he knew how powerless he was compared to him. Unfortunately, he didn't track down anyone that seemed capable of evening the odds. Anybody that would be willing to fight Orsted, I think, is a big thing there. Hey, you want to fight the dragon god? Which is interesting. He must have been purposely, looking for people, but not explaining what he needed them for, just for the sake of kind of sizing them up. And, yeah, probably didn't mention what he was actually going to do, which most people, I think, if he found somebody, would be like, oh, that's what you're doing? No, thank you. No, thank you. I won't get involved. Bodigadi and Rajerd was nowhere to be found. Petagoose, obviously, flat out denied him. His reasoning wasn't exactly comforting either.
There's 3 people in this world you should never fight. The Technique God, the Fighting God, and the Dragon God. Even amongst those 3, Orsted is particularly powerful and particularly ruthless. Your determination to protect your family is admirable, and I would love to ask him a few questions about the Man God. But I shall stay out of this. I'd rather not die before Laplace returns, you see.
2 really interesting things in that whole thing. I mean, yes, 3 technically in the idea that, yes, sizing it up the whole thing. These are the 3 you don't fight. Yeah, obviously. Yes, that Orsted is particularly powerful and ruthless. Makes sense. But your determination to protect your family is admirable. So he was very clear with Orsted what's going on. And again, we mentioned it in the previous chapter. Supposedly, they're listening in on everything. So he should know what he talked to Nanahoshi about. So he went to Petagoose and said, hey,
No.
it's like, he goes, hey, can I ask you if...
Oh, no, I'm not doing it.
But no, the last part there is, I think, the most interesting. I would like to ask him a few questions about the Man God. Now, again, because Petagoose possibly listening to that conversation, he knows now that Orsted, through Rudius, knows something about the Man God, and he's curious about the Man God. He wants to ask a few questions. And again, previously with Future Rudius, he did mention the idea that he asked him about the Man God, and Petagoose said he didn't know anything about it. He might know about the existence or the mention of the Man God, but he just doesn't know anything about him. And maybe that's right here the same thing. I want to ask him a few questions about the Man God to find out what the hell this dude is. But I think it's more interesting the idea that we presume that he knows him because Orsted's the one that introduced Nanahoshi to him. You would think that they had some sort of relationship. They're both of the Dragonkin, Dragonfolk, so they should possibly know about each other, or at least be somewhat of friends. But again, it goes back to the idea that I don't think they really communicate. Petagoose, this is his goal. He's doing this thing. Orsted, this is his goal. He's doing this thing. It's not like he drops by every now and then and goes, hey, what's up, man? Let's have some tea. I don't see Orsted being that type. It could be, and maybe he was going around with Nanahoshi and sampling all the local teas. No, we don't know.
I'd rather not die before
Laplace returns. And that was the other thing. He's like, yeah, Orsted is going to kill me. Rudius went in a bit optimistic about his chances of coaxing him in, but it didn't work out that way. At least he wasn't actively trying to stop him. So that was a win. Now, I think that is a thing. I'd be curious why Rudius wouldn't decide to tell Petagus, okay, why are you wanting to take out Laplace? Well, the assumption is that Laplace is going to destroy the world. Laplace was destroying the world. And with that idea, hey, Orsted might be trying to destroy the world. Want to join me? That would be definitely an interesting angle to go with. It really depends on how much. Why? I guess there's the question. Why? Why does Petagus want to kill Laplace? Why? The history books say that Laplace was going around and being a bad person, and Petagus rose up with his allies to take him out. It could be because his allies were killed by Laplace, and that's why he hates him so much. But yeah, why? What was the threat there? Why is he so focused on just Laplace? If it was a sake that he was trying to conquer the whole world, there's still people in the world that are trying to do that. And he doesn't want to get involved. It is interesting. But yeah, interesting though, at least he wasn't actively trying to stop Rudius. So that was a win. That's the other curious thing. That was like I was talking about last time. When he was talking to Nanahoshi, it's like, well, why doesn't he storm through the door and say,
"What are you doing? Get back, Rudius, stop."
And just straight kill him. You're attacking my friend. It's not his friend again. So Rudius considers Zenoba with his highly resistant body to physical damage. But Atoff was capable of damaging him with her attacks. He had to assume that it would be the same for Orsted. He didn't want to get Zenoba killed as he was his best friend. Same went for Cliff and Elise. Note that, because I'm going to get into that in a minute. I love this. I love this so much that he wants to keep them safe. For once, he's not thinking, yeah, I can bring Zenoba, and he could be a shield in front of me, and he could stop him while I blast him, just like last time. But no, he doesn't want to get his best friend killed. He doesn't want to get Cliff or Elise killed. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he read that diary and said, I don't want that to happen again, because I lived it. The more he thought about it, the less he wanted to drag anyone else into this fight. He considered Edis momentarily, but it was hard to expect when she would get there. Yeah, that's the other thing. It is kind of interesting to note that future Rudius never learned why she was getting strong. Yes, he found out eventually that she was doing it all for him, that she was trying to get stronger for him, but for what purpose? That initial goal was for Orsted, and yes, that did change for Edis, and maybe that's why he never found out. That goal changed to just, I want to be out of sight. In case Orsted ever attacks, I can protect him. I can at least take that blow for him. I'll probably die, but as long as he kills Orsted, it's fine. So it makes sense that she never came to him and said, I was training for Orsted. Based on the diary, she was probably more powerful than him with the magic armor. Was there a chance that she'd join him against Orsted? It wasn't a fair question. I like this. Before he dragged her into his battles, the two of them needed to sort out their past. Otherwise, he had no right to expect her help. I like that. I like that idea of him acknowledging, I can't just seek her out and go, hey, can you help me real quick? Like, all this stuff happened back here that they really need to sort out. I can't just jump out there and say, hey, come on, let's go kill Orsted, right? She would totally do it, but he doesn't expect that. He'd be fighting on his own, and he absolutely had to kill his opponent. Given these two premises, he actually had a lot of options. He could keep his distance, use powerful spells with wide effect. Bigger the spell, the more difficult to evade, like lightning, which concentrated all the power to a small area. Though, Orsted might dodge it. Wide area attacks from a distance still seem like the smartest approach. Being far away enough that he can't perceive his presence would avoid disturbed magic. Catching him unawares, or in a trap, wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe lure him to a location, but how? Maybe he could take Nanahoshi hostage or send him a message from the man god. Here's where it starts. Here's where, I mean, I already had a Rudius you're being dumb list right here. And it started back in the previous chapters with this idea of, dude, why don't you see that this isn't going to change anything? He wants you to get yourself killed. He's just trying to make his enemy kill themselves. That's all it is. But in the end, you're still his enemy. You're lowering your numbers. That's my current theory, that this whole thing is dumb. But now I'm adding more to it. Because yes, there was he pushed Nanahoshi to help him out when this is her friend. And now we're talking about, I can use Nanahoshi as a hostage. I'm going to bring her into the situation. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Rudius. This is where Rudius becomes punchable Rudius once again. I've criticized Rudius in the past But this is the moments where I want to punch him. I understand what he's doing this. I understand his fears. But when you drag other people into it, that's where it gets dumb. Especially dragging somebody into it that is the friend of the person you're trying to kill. That said, he wasn't too optimistic it would take him down. If Orsted found his way to him, it could come down to a cross-range fight in his magic armor. Rudius wasn't sure his mind could keep up with the ultra-high-speed battle. Yeah, that's one of those things of, like, thinking back to when Orsted fought Rajerd, that happened so fast. And they were exchanging blows like crazy. It was just rapid fire. Rudius doesn't have that capability. It's almost like they're slowing down time, and Rudius is standing there going, normal speed going, what is going on? But Rudius didn't want to worry about that until he took his armor for a spin. As Rudius thought about all this, he remembered his childhood in this world. Even till now, Paul comes into play, spending a lot of time working on a plan to beat Paul in his prime. In the end, he never defeated him once. Still, the tactics he worked out were deeply rooted in his mind. Rudius knew how to use his magic in coordination with movements of his body. He knew how to move in 3 dimensions. No matter who he faced, his basic approach wasn't going to change. He needed to keep his distance, blast him with attacks, keep pressure up, and force him to make a mistake. Again, even till now, Paul's training technically was fruitful for Rudius. And it's kind of interesting because recently doing my skip content for the anime onlys in Ghislaine, at some point Ghislaine mentioned the idea that yes, Rudius was trying to beat Paul. And she was talking about Rudius' training specifically, in that yes, apparently Rudius' only opponent back when he was in Buena Village was Paul. And she mentioned specifically that Paul was immature and probably didn't hold back against Rudius. He was ruthless to Rudius in his training, which, yes, Rudius always kind of mentioned. I want to one day beat him because he was always beating me down. And I was constantly trying to figure out a way that I could beat him when he's in his prime. And yes, a lot of that had to do with using, wind attacks or whatever to blow himself away, or earth magic to push himself in one direction or the other. Because he can't move lightning speed like everybody else in this world that have battle auras and that are trained physically, he was relying on magic to push himself around, which was essentially a way of tricking him. Rudius was trying to figure out ways of using his magics to trick Paul and make him slip up. Use Quagmire, make him sink into the ground, and then attack him from there. Those kind of methods. Even till now, Paul's training, ruthless, immature training against him, pushing him to his limits and making him have to figure out something unique in order to fight, is still being used to now. So great. That's how Rudius fought when he was at his best. Orsted had disturbed magic, his worm gates, and who knows what else. All known things. Who knows what else? All known things. So Rudius couldn't see it going according to plan. A trap and ambush was a good start. But what else did he need? He had to plan thoroughly, considering every possibility, and focusing on promising ideas. In all honesty, Rudius knew his mind wasn't functioning too well right now. He was impatient, scared, and increasingly obsessed with this task. It would probably be wiser to take things more slowly and experiment. A better plan would probably involve cornering Orsted slowly and methodically over 10 years or so. This is starting to feed into that one of my really deep theories over here that I choose not to. Well, I think I've mentioned it before. This deep theory over here that the man god is Rudius, like an alternate Rudius. So it makes sense that the two of them kind of think about things the same way. In that theory in chat, I don't even want to see chat moving right now. In one of those theories, the idea that the man god is Rudius before he came to this world and matured. So, like an alternate Rudius that never got to grow up in this new world and gain experiences and mature. So this would be like raw, I just came from the other world as a disgusting person Rudius. And so he's just over here thinking it's a game and messing with people and finding humor in it. So whenever there's these moments where suddenly it feels like Rudius thinks kind of like the man god, it could be an aspect that, yes, he's being manipulated by the man god, or he's thinking like the man god because he keeps having to interact with the man god. Or just the idea that, yes, that's just mankind is nasty, and the man god is nasty. But yes, it could also just be coincidence. But it's the same mentality here. It is just like the man god, slowly over time manipulate him. Get him to trust me. Kill him. However, Rudius feared that if he delayed, the man god might change his mind and kill his family. One night, while he was preparing, he came to him again. That was quick. Rudius found himself in a white... That's like 3 man god visits in the same volume? Holy crap. Rudius found himself in a white space, presumably in the center of the barren world.
Hey there. Looks like things are coming along nicely, huh?
Yeah, I'll fight Orsted, just like you asked me to.
Now. I didn't ask you to fight him. I just asked you to kill him.
You sure look like you're in a good mood today. Are you happy to have me dancing on your strings?
Come on. This is exciting stuff. Even I don't know what's going to happen next.
Glad you're enjoying yourself. I wasn't expecting to see you again so soon, though. Does this mean that you made up all that stuff about wavelengths, aligning, or whatever?
Oh, yeah. Total nonsense.
And what sucks is you don't know if he's telling the truth. Is it that this was a lie and this is the truth? Or was that the truth and this is a lie? It's like you don't know. I don't know. There's a side of me that thinks that he wouldn't lie about this because he wants Rudius to think, I can control anybody. I can talk to anybody. This is technically going to lead into a minute here in the idea that the threats will continue. But yeah, I don't know. There's like a side of me that wants to go, okay, throw that out. And then there's a side of me that's like, no, it could still be the truth. But no, it is interesting, the idea that he's mentioning, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like he's saying, I don't know how this is. This is exciting because this is a future that I haven't seen before. And I'm excited to see how this unfolds. In the future that I see, you go off and have children and they join Orsted and kill me. In this future, I don't know what's going to happen. The two of you are going to face off against each other and I want to see what happens. He's excited because, again, his threats are killing themselves. You can at least pretend to feel a little shame. So I'm guessing the part about I can only appear to certain people was a lie too?
Yep, pure fiction. But hey, it must have been a nice ego boost to hear that you were the chosen one, right?
Well, whatever. Within the next few days, I'll tell Sylphie and Roxy that I'm planning to fight Orsted. If he doesn't end up killing me, my kids will grow up knowing that he was the man who murdered their father. That should be plenty of reason not to hate him, so...
Sorry, that's not gonna be enough to knock Destiny off track. You need to kill him, or I'll erase your descendants, no matter how long it takes.
There it is.
Please, Rudius.
Stop! Ugh. No matter, and again, this goes back to my previous argument. I think Man God right here is saying this to push Rudius. You need to kill him. He wants Rudius to take this seriously. Because I think there is a side of saying, you know, yeah, if you die, yeah, I won't bother with your descendants. Yeah, that'll work. No, because then Rudius is not going to take this seriously. He wants Rudius to take this seriously. Get over there, kill him, or I'm going to kill your family. He wants to push Rudius right now. Because again, like my theories goes, is that even if Rudius goes there... So scenario 1, Rudius kills Orsted, and then goes back home. The Man God still kills him, because, again, future Rudius figured out how to get to the Man God, and his descendants might have a destiny still to kill him. The destiny doesn't matter. I just don't see... Yes, technically Orsted dying could move the destiny enough that the descendants don't care about killing Man God. I don't think so. Because again, I still think there's a connection there. Scenario 2, Rudius goes there, and Orsted kills him. They still join up. They still go after the Man God. Both scenarios, the Man God is still your threat. And again, I think it's going to go in that first theory. He's going to kill Orsted, and Orsted is going to tell him in the last minute, this is what's going on. Or he might kill Orsted and nothing is exchanged. And then he goes back to home and then realizes, okay, Man God's still after me. Nothing changed. Got to kill Man God now. I wish I didn't kill Orsted now. Ugh. Do you have to phrase it like that? Well, whatever. In any case, it's going to take me a while to complete the magic armor. We're breaking new ground here, and Cliff's struggling with some of the theories involved. I'm trying to push things as far as I can, but I think it's going to be another 6 months or so.
Cliff should already be capable of designing magic circles to strengthen the rocks. You should focus solely on making the joints and the external shell, since that needs to be as tough as possible. Also, when you're designing the magic circles for the torso, make sure to use the Alistair method, rather than the wind system. That should help you pass the tough parts.
No kidding?
Tell Zenoba that you want the thing to be on a bit more bulky side as well. You'll burn more mana that way. But it'll let you layer more magic circles underneath the main ones. Design the circles on the lower layer to repair the more important ones if they get damaged. That will help you keep things moving, even if things are half destroyed.
Huh. Wait. I didn't know you were an expert on this stuff.
Well, I am the Man God, you know. I'm familiar with the Fighting God's armor, to give you a few pointers.
That is very interesting. I don't know that they've ever kind of explained that the Fighting God's armor was exactly what they're creating now. Like, there's a similarity here. Now, yes, technically, back here with the future Rudius, he was mentioning the idea that he heard about the armor, but he never described the idea that he looked into how it was made and that it was a bunch of layer of magic circles. Just at the idea that it was a magic armor. So it is kind of interesting that right here, the man god's saying, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that, and that's kind of the same idea here, so I know all about it. I don't know. Again, this goes back to that whole idea of what if the man god is Rudius? The idea that yes, one of my theories is the idea that he's pre-Rudius in this world, maturing. It could also be kind of like a future Rudius situation too, where it's a Rudius that has been screwed up in the head. And yes, went through this whole thing. Knows about all this stuff. That reminds me. Don't people of this world call you the god of men instead? Is there any significance to that?
The god of men is something like a nickname of mine, I suppose. It just caught on for some reason, I guess. Man god is my proper name.
It is so weird they keep dodging around this. It is so bizarre they keep dodging around this. Why do I feel like you're lying to me yet again? Not that I really care much about your name. More importantly, do you think I can win? Let's say I build a magic armor, set a trap, launch a sneak attack. Do I stand a chance?
Oh, good question. I mean, you got as much mana as Laplace to work with, right? If you go all out, I bet you could put up a good fight.
Put up a good fight. That's not super reassuring. Mind being less vague? I wouldn't mind if you've dropped me a few more hints on the strategy.
All right, then. Get yourself some magical implements. The kind that fire off offensive spells when you feed mana to them. Shouldn't be too hard to find those in Shirai, right? They're destined to only consume a little bit of juice, so ordinary folks can use them. But it's easy to modify them so they use more mana. Just like the Zeal of Prosthesis of yours. Make yourself a few really high-powered ones. The sort that only you can use. You'll get some new attacks for your arsenal, and a way to work around the disturbed magic.
Again, this is one of those things where it's like, I think he sees all this. I think he's seen all of this. It just seems so extremely specific that it has to be something that either he's seen before or he's seen that this is going to happen. But at the same time, it's like, why bring it up now? Why is this the point when she goes, oh yeah, sure, yeah, this specific thing? Again, it's almost like he's egging him on, or at least he knows this is partly a thing. Or again, it's just all a joke to him, and he's going, yeah, let's see what parts I want to mention to him this time. What parts do I want him to use in this battle? Oh wow, gotta say, you're giving me a lot of really detailed advice for a change.
Well, you're throwing yourself into this more enthusiastically than I expected. Why would I want to help out? I really do want Orsted dead,
Can't shake the feeling that there's something more to this. For all I know, if I design the magic armor according to your instructions, it'll explode the moment I activate it.
Whose life would you like to bet on that intriguing theory? Go on, pick. Aisha, Norn, Lilia, or Zenith?
You eat this so much.
Like I told you, I can't see Orsted's future. That means I can't see the outcome of your battle either. I don't know what's going to happen to you.
Okay, that means that you don't know for sure if I'm going to lose, correct? Think about this, Rudius. It's like, again, think. Think about this, Rudius. If he can't see Orsted's future, whose future can he see? Yours. Again, I don't think that he can really see... Again, he can see these branching paths. And yes, he could possibly see that branching path where Rudius does fight Orsted. But he should see the outcome. Even if he can't see Orsted in that future, he can see Rudius. I don't know. Is he dead or no? I don't think he wants Rudius to know. That's the thing. Or he doesn't want Rudius to know because he wants Rudius to put more effort into it. And that could be why he's adding more things to it. Okay, so that means that you don't know if I'm going to lose, correct?
Exactly.
By the way, if you can't see Orsted's future, how do you know that he's going to join forces with my descendants in the future? How do you know if I'm going to die or not?
I can't see the man himself, but I can certainly see my own future. It involves your descendants, some man I don't recognize, and Orsted surrounding me.
Interesting. Descendants, a man I don't recognize, and Orsted surrounding me. So there's one other person. I wonder if that is the guy that Nanahoshi liked, that she's trying to find. That's the only other kind of wild card. So far, that's the only other wild card in the story that we have not presented yet. We have not presented the guy that Nanahoshi's looking for, the other student. Which makes sense. If he was transferred just like Nanahoshi, he's somebody that probably won't age either. He might have had his body moved and he's not aging. And technically, he has never mentioned the idea if he can see Nanahoshi. So it makes sense there as well. I don't think the man god's ever mentioned Nanahoshi.
I'd have to go back and check. You can see anything that you're going to experience personally, huh? So what happens after they show up? They just beat you to the pulp or what? Yep, they kill me rather brutally. I don't put up much of a fight. Sign there. He's not powerful. Look, why is Orsted after you anyways? You sure you didn't do anything unspeakably cruel to him? Oh, who knows? I don't recall doing anything to the man himself, at the very least. Either you don't want to tell me or you generally don't know. I guess it doesn't matter which. It's not like I can trust anything you tell me anyways. You lie constantly. No, that's a little harsh. The only malicious lie I ever told you was the fib about the basement, you know. All your advice up until now was laying the groundwork for that moment, right? Yeah, true. But you know, if you hadn't gone and gotten Roxy pregnant, I wouldn't have needed to do that. Which is kind of interesting. Again, this goes back to that whole question mark really around what is the difference between Lucy and the child of Roxy? Why didn't he try? Yes, he technically mentioned the idea that he's been trying to stop this whole thing, but right here he's being really specific in the idea that it is Roxy's child. I wouldn't have had to do that until you did this. Makes me believe that Lucy is just going to be just not involved. Or Roxy's child is going to be the boy that Petagoose was talking about. And that specifically is the lineage of children that's going to be the problem. Why the hell couldn't you have just told me not have children with her then? Why did you make this so complicated? It wouldn't have worked. No matter what I said, you would have knocked her up. There's no stopping your destiny to bang. That's just the way it had to be, I guess. No matter how many times I tweaked and prodded the future, it just didn't want to change. Maybe so, but you could have at least... never mind. Sorry for yelling at you. In the end, I did marry Roxy, and I did get her pregnant. Now that I think about it, some of the things I did to end up here felt a little strange to me. Out of character, even. I guess that's how this destiny thing works. And I get why you want to change it. I'll do what you want, man god. I'll follow your orders. I'll kill Orsted. But before I do that, there's something I need you to say. Oh, Rudy's is so frustrating. Rudy's frustrates me. Rudy's frustrates me. Which is literally this entire story. Is Rudy's doing things that are just kind of either morally gray, frustrating, inappropriate, or just, I guess, raw. It's all raw. We all like to backseat Rudy's life. But it is interesting that he notes specifically some of the things that he did to end up here felt a little strange. I wonder if that's just the basically, to put it as simple as possible, things that he wouldn't normally do from his previous life. In my previous life, I wouldn't have done this because this is me going out of my way. Like the whole idea of going after Zenith. Is that one of those aspects of like, that felt strange? It's strange that I did that. Normally, I wouldn't do that. Normally, I'd be like, I don't care about this Zenith person. Why would I do that? She's not my mom. I wouldn't help Paul out. He's not my dad. There are things that are strange to him based on his previous life. What's that? Once Orsted's dead, I want you to leave me alone for the rest of my life. Don't meddle with my family either. Please, I want you to promise me that. What's this? And here I thought you didn't trust any of my promises anymore. I don't. Of course I don't. But I have to believe you're not lying to me about this one thing. If you're not going to let me off the hook, no matter what, maybe I'll just join Orsted and start working against you. Oh, go right ahead. I can't kill you, sure. And I can't kill him either. But you don't want to see what I can do. You'll find out exactly what it means to make an enemy out of me. You might be bluffing right now. Maybe threatening me is the best you got. I mean, you had to manipulate me for years to get me to be able to make one little mistake. For all I know, you might be talking tough because you're terrified to have me as an enemy. Please, you got a very strong destiny. So I was trying to nip things in the butt as subtly as possible. Oh, forget it. It's not like you're going to believe whatever I say, right? Go ahead, underestimate me all you want. Bye now. You might live to regret this. No, sorry. I take it back. Give me a minute here. Look, all I want is a little reassurance. You say you're going to kill my family if I lose to Orsted. But even if I win, it feels very possible that you'll turn around and kill them anyways. He at least acknowledges it. That's not great for my motivations, you know? I need to know that there's a point to me doing this. Sigh. I suppose you're right. Here goes then. In the name of the man god, I swear to honor my promise. Once you defeat Orsted, I won't have anything to worry about. That means I won't need to bother you ever again. I won't speak to, harass, or attempt to harm you. Your wives, your mother, your sister, your descendants, or your pets. Even the horny Groot. You really mean that, right? I'm going to hold you to that. Sure, if you like. I'm even willing to offer a little helpful advice if your family ever finds itself in crisis. I've had enough of your advice for a lifetime, thanks. Oh yeah? Well then, good luck with Orsted. With those final words, echoing my ear, I felt myself sink into unconsciousness. Again, I'm happy that at least Rudius is acknowledging that this is probably not going to actually change anything. If I do this for you, you'll leave me alone, right? You're not going to believe me. Yeah, but I need you to actually, just say it just so I feel good. Can you just lie to me so I feel good about this whole thing? I know you're not going to follow through with these promises, but can you just lie to me? It's so agitating. It is so agitating. I didn't mention this earlier. I had those two scenarios. He kills, but then he still gets attacked by the man god, or he doesn't kill Orsted and they turn on the man god. Those are my two theories, or those two scenarios. Obvious scenarios. The third is technically the idea of this entire time, what is the possibility that Refugian has been omitting Rudius's inner thoughts about not really doing this? What if Rudius this entire time has been thinking about, I need to trick the man god? So I'm going to go over to Nanahoshi. I'm going to tell her, look, I'm going to kill Orsted. I'm sorry. Like, he's literally having to convince her, this is what I'm doing. Outwardly, Rudius is making sure the man god sees that he is doing exactly what he wants him to do. But internally, in the back of his mind, if the man god can't see his thoughts, there's never been an indication that he knows what Rudius is thinking. It seems like he does whenever he's talking to the man god, like he's there and he's subconsciously reading his mind, but never indicated that he knows what he's thinking. So, was a possibility that, again, Refugian has been sort of writing these chapters from the perspective of the man god, watching what Rudius is doing. Now, granted, it's not really the case because we're hearing his inner thoughts. But what if, at the point that he actually reaches Orsted, he tells Orsted, I need your help. I have to kill the man god. And then it goes, yes, this whole time I've been actually thinking about this. I just have not been vocalizing it so that the man god would know. I've been keeping it a secret in my own mind. And yes, the Refugian has been purposely not including those thoughts, just to fool us into thinking that he wants to go after Orsted. Just thought. But yeah, it is interesting that he actually does acknowledge it. Leave me alone, please. But I don't believe you. But tell me that so I feel better. It's really frustrating, and I don't, again, believe anything the man god's saying. Another month flew by. The magic armor was coming along smoothly. Following the man god's advice, they made it larger, roughly 3 meters tall. Making it bigger led to discoveries that it was easier to design and increase its durability. So the man god's advice was legitimate. Cliff ran with the new ideas quickly, solving his worst problems he had struggled with. While Rudius expected it to take half a year, their progress accelerated significantly. They could be done within a month or so, a mere 3 months total. Under any other circumstances, he'd had gratitude towards man god. It was ironic. His future self made the armor to kill the man god, and now the man god was helping him create it. It made Rudius wonder if the man god was up to something devious here. However, Cliff and Zenoba was actually the ones making it, and Rudius trusted them. That is a good point in the idea that, yes, this is technically the creation process, or at least the push was from the man god, and the advice is from the man god, but these two are putting it into play. And they're not going to design something that could be dangerous. They know how it works. They know what they're putting together. They're smart. Rudius had Roxy help him find the magical implements the man god mentioned. Wands that launched a beginner tier spell with the word fire. They were cheap and not very powerful, something thieves would use to attack at range. If the man god was right, they could modify them to fire off a sort of stone cannon that he used in battle. The idea also occurred to him that he could modify it to cast a continuous stream of spells if supplied mana. 10 or so of them together would be like a Gatling gun of sorts. It's kind of like an attachment. This is totally going into Mecha Rudius. I at some point in here, we need a picture of him standing there with his suit of armor and the Gatling gun. It looks like it's straight out of like Warhammer or something. Mentioning this to Roxy, she nodded with a neutral expression. Your spells are very potent, but you can only fire them one at a time. This might be a way around the limitation. Fortunately, I happened to meet an excellent creator of magical implements recently. Let's see if they'll take the job. The same day, Roxy arranged a meeting with her acquaintance. Surprisingly, she was an elvish woman. There was not many of them around Shariah. Elves had a pretty face, as a general rule, but hers was caked with soot, and her fingernails black with grime. Clearly devoted to her job. Explaining the plan, her eyes widened with surprise. She said that it could drain so much mana that it could kill him. Rudius hadn't considered this. Was that what the man god had in mind when he suggested it? Stone Cannon didn't take much mana, but this could fire off tens of thousands in a single day. If he couldn't kill Orsted without running out of mana, he was as good as dead either way. Technically, yes, a good point, the idea that this is pretty much a suicide mission. It's either you kill or you die.
But yes, does technically make sense. The idea that, yes, if he could create something that could do the same spell that he does, but at a higher rate, it does make sense. But curiosity here is the idea of, if this was so simple that somebody can create a magical implement that creates the same type of stone cannon he does, why wouldn't this be a normal thing? How does he technically explain that to them? The idea that Rudius is taking this stone cannon and pumping mana into it and speeding it up, increasing its speed, its spin rate, its velocity in order to create this massive attack, that's something that's foreign to the world itself. When people see this, they're like, what? Now, yes, you could argue that's because he's pumping a bunch of mana into it, but just the idea of what he does with it is foreign to everybody. And yes, he says that it doesn't take much mana as compared to, say, a massive king tier spell or something like that. So how does he explain this? Because what Reese is doing with a stone cannon is foreign to everybody. How does he explain that to her to put it into a magical implement? Unless all it needs to do is, I guess, have not the limitations of mana so that he can do that, and then he's going to do that. But it doesn't make sense. He's not casting the spell. He's just saying the name, and it's casting. So that seems like a little bit of a plot hole there, but maybe he's explained the whole process to her. My assumption is that when that was suggested, that he was going to go to Cliff and Zenoba to create it based on those specs of how he does it. But maybe he's explained that to the elf. Reese went ahead with the order, and the elf shrugged, accepting the job. On the way back to the workshop, Roxy struck up a conversation. Rudy, I don't know who or what you're planning to fight, but will you really need a weapon like that to defeat them? No, I'm sure it'll be fine anyway. He was just trying to reassure her. But she narrowed her eyes and pouted in displeasure. You used to be such an honest, sweet kid, Rudy. But lately all you do is lie and hide things from me. This is like a very, very rare Roxy right here. That stung a little bit. But to be fair, he did plenty of lying as a kid. Sorry, Roxy. Oh, that's all right. I'm hiding something from you too, after all. But you know, Rudy, I'm at least discussing the matter with people I trust. I'm not saying that it has to be me, but I hope that you confide in someone. You're not trying to face all this alone, are you? Nah, don't worry. I'll be okay. I do like that approach that she has there. Don't struggle alone, but I don't want to say that you have to talk to me. Obviously, you're having you're having some sort of reason why you can't talk to me, so that's fine. Just find somebody to. He had an idea of what her secret was. She was actively steering him away from suggesting activities in bed. Given what the diary said, she was probably suspecting that she was pregnant. She wasn't getting morning sickness yet, but he did notice that her sense of taste seemed to have changed. He was curious when she would break the news. Maybe she was waiting for the second trimester, or maybe she was planning on keeping it quiet until he dealt with the current mission. That was my suspicion at this point, and the idea that I think that she's not saying anything because she doesn't want to worry him. Again, it goes back to that discussion that they were having in the previous chapters when Sylphie and Roxy were in there with Rudius. She was saying, we'll handle things here. You focus on what you're focusing on. Don't worry about this stuff. Don't get distracted from what you're working on. Obviously, you're working on something that's very important and you can't tell us. So I want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to bother you. And this could be one of those things. I can't tell him about this because it's going to distract him from what he's doing. It's going to make him worry. Still, he hoped that she would speak up before he left to fight Orsted. That way he could have a big party to celebrate. Perhaps his last chance to throw one. Already flagging himself right here. Visiting Nanahoshi again, he was surprised that he was allowed in the floating fortress. Given how scared he was of Orsted, Pedagoose was being pretty lenient towards Rudius. When he arrived, Rudius spoke up to Savaro. I kind of thought that you wouldn't let me in after last time, you know? Lord Pedagoose always shows great compassion to those who are going to their deaths. He has no objection to you saying your farewells to Miss Nanahoshi. So it was assumed he would die, and this was an act of charity. It beat being chased away at the door, though. Pedagoose has a sense of humor. Nanahoshi was looking livelier. Someone brought her possessions from the university, so the room was less barren. Presumably, Zenoba gave her the reserved figurine, and Cliff gave her a decorative cross. That was thoughtful of Cliff. It never hurt to have something to pray to when you're struggling. Reese didn't have much interest in gods or relics in his previous life, but his opinion on that matter changed. Evolved a bit. Yes, Roxyism. Again, going back to that discussion that we had way back there, I think a lot of that has to do with Rudius not so much praying to a being, like an actual being that's up there, but more so an idea of finding some sort of comfort in it itself. The idea of not necessarily believing that it will change anything, but that it becomes a routine, something to comfort yourself.
So basically, my preparations are coming along nicely. I think it's time that we talk about how we're going to lure him to me. All right, but first, as I'm sure you're well aware, Orsted is extremely powerful. I know. He's also ruthless. I'm not sure how he picks his targets, but when he intends to kill someone, he doesn't hesitate. I spent several years traveling with him, and I never saw him break a sweat in battle. He kills giant dragons in a single... Can you stop trying to scare me, Nanahoshi? I'm sorry, but I do want you to reconsider this. In all honesty, it's madness. Plain and simple. Look, I know, I'm sorry. She had him feeling more anxious than before, making him wonder if he stood a chance of winning. Perfect. Perfect. Keep going, Nanahoshi. Keep going, Nanahoshi. This is so funny because I'm so convinced that the man god is just wrong, that the man god is evil, and that Orsted is actually a good person. I'm so convinced of this. I have, in my own head canon, I have created that this is how it is. But there is a smidge inside of me over here that's wondering, am I playing the Refugion's hand? Is at the end of the day, the man god's actually the good person? He's just mischievous. And Orsted is literally trying to destroy all the worlds. It'd be like a huge rug pull. Like, you were wrong the whole time, Andrew. I'm just so convinced that Orsted is not the bad guy. It could be one of those things like that I do kind of appreciate, that I think they've technically done quite a bit in this series, is they're both bad. Like, what's to say they're not both bad? What if Orsted is trying to destroy the worlds? But at the same time, it's because the man god's a dick. What I'm trying to say is, I don't recommend fighting him head on. Sure, yeah, I can't see myself beating him in a fair fight, no matter how much I enhance my strength and speed. If I were you, I would lure him to a specific spot, and then attack him with your magic from a distance, while remaining hidden, of course. Anything else come to mind? Let's see. Oh, what? Did you think of something? I'd almost rather not say, but I did decide to help you, I suppose. Right. She swallowed loudly. Poisoning him might work as well. Sure. Rudius thought, poisoning, huh? Detoxification magic can deal with a lot, but there were certain diseases and poisons with no spell to counteract it. It was hard to say that it would work against Orsted. Maybe Ariel could hook him up with something suitable. He assumed everyone in the royal family were well versed in that kind of thing. Okay, so I set up a trap. Poison him and then attack from a distance. All right. Nanahoshi, can I use you as a hostage? A hostage? I suppose so. I'm not sure how concerned Orsted is with my safety, though. Yeah, good point. We don't want him figuring out that you're working for me either. No reason to put your neck on the line, too. Oh, right. I hadn't thought about that. Rias decided against the hostage thing. No, he doesn't. I hate it. And Rias knew that it was a highly effective way of manipulating someone. However, it could also make someone furious and highly motivated. It could backfire on you. Even though, again, I've read the next chapter, so I know where this kind of, well, at least based on the next chapter, where it kind of goes. But this is where I'm already, like, more I hate Rudius marks going on. But yeah, it does technically make sense. In a lot of stories, that typically happens. I think more so for parental figures, too. I think for parents, I think this is kind of one of those things. It's a fuel for somebody to do something that you can't control. You think you can take a hostage to control somebody. In actuality, sometimes that can make them even more driven to take you down. Any other ideas, Nanahoshi? I don't know. Did you read a lot of manga back in Japan? There was plenty of powerful enemies in those, right? I don't think those strategies are going to be helpful here. This is kind of one of those always kind of mixed things. There's a lot of stories, especially isekais love doing this. There's a lot of isekais that love using their manga knowledge and stuff like that to feel their strategies in a new world. And it always kind of works out really well. Like, everybody thinks they're geniuses and whatever, and they're like, I just used that story from this one manga. Sometimes they use history too. A lot of stories love using history as a knowledge base for whatever situation they're put in. But yeah, it technically does make sense, and a lot of those mangas are probably going to have some sort of power that he doesn't even have. After some discussion, they came up with a few promising ideas. All sneaky, underhanded tricks. However, most deadly techniques were a combination of devious little maneuvers. Well then, good luck, Rudius. Thanks. Try to come back alive, will you? I don't think I'll ever be able to get home without your help. That's the other key thing there. That is another one of those aspects that kind of is probably frustrating for her. Again, kind of going back to all these things that are probably going through Nanahoshi's mind right now, based on the diary, based on what Rudius told her, the idea that she could possibly be from the future, that she's destined to probably take down the man god. And then add to that, yes, if Rudius dies, she's in trouble. Like, she loses her mana supply. She loses this great asset of her getting home. And yes, technically somebody that has supported her to get back on her feet. Mentally and physically, technically. For the plan figured out on how to lure Orsted to him, he turned to Ariel for help. After explaining that he needed a spell that couldn't be neutralized, she grimaced. Even still, she set him up with an introduction to the local underworld organization she was on good terms with. The group was larger and more sophisticated than your typical band of bandits. It was more like a gang or a mafia family. Drug smuggling was their main business, and they made a variety of poisons. They ended up pointing him to a dilapidated house in a quiet corner of Shariah. There he was escorted into a room in the basement where the air was thick with a sweet scented smoke. A man with one eye waited for him inside. Someone that seemed to know who Rudius was.
Hello there, Mr. Grey Rat. Nice to meet you. So tell me, what can I do for you today? You want me to make them really suffer for a while? Or just kill over right away? Maybe something to make their leg go numb? Or swell up some magician's tongue? I've got a little potion that could drive women wild, too. Perfect for when things get a bit perfunctory.
I'll take everything you got.
Everything? Now, I'm not complaining, but that's gonna be a little pricey.
That's fine with me.
Whoa, okay then. Guess you really want someone dead. Oh, what about the love drug? You want that one too?
Well, suddenly it occurred to Rudius. What if Orsted was immune to poison? It goes down there, I want the whole story. Wait, I don't know if this will work. It suddenly occurs to him. Wait. Whatever. I need everything. Like, I just feel like Rudius is going to be like walking with his massive backpack out in the middle of this field, and Orsted's in the middle of the field, and he just goes, all right. Wait there. All right, this one. That work? No, it didn't. Okay, what's the... Just chucking stuff. Now, it makes sense, the idea that, yes, he's technically going to be setting up traps, so I wonder if he's going to set up this area with all these traps in it, and each one of these traps has one of these poisons that just shoot out and hit him. Orsted was cursed to be hated, so it was likely he had a countermeasure in place for that sort of thing. Maybe he was naturally resistant, or had a miracle potion that could purge toxins. Yeah, I guess that's the question mark there is, yes, on one hand here, we've acknowledged the idea that Orsted knows all known magics. So he could have like basically every type of detoxification. What Rudius is kind of working with here is he wants to have a poison that has not had a cure created for it yet, because there is those things in the world. He mentioned it before, there's like basically a Cold War happening right now, where two sides are an arms race. Two sides are essentially building poisons, and the other ones are trying to counteract it. So there's some cases where there's some stuff that does not have a cure yet. So it's odd that he's going down here and going, I need a ton of poisons. And he's like, oh, okay, here, have all these poisons. No, specifically, I want the ones, he's not saying this, I want the ones that don't have cures. I don't need just your entire shop. I don't know, it is weird. It would be interesting, though, that if he specifically just has a natural resistance. I mean, a lot of stories about dragons specifically is that they are inherently immune to a lot of poisons. That doesn't affect them. Their bodies are too strong. Yeah, I'll take that too.
Sure thing. You want to see that cool, collected beauty of yours melt into a puddle, eh?
My wife's sweet as a kitten in bed, actually.
No kidding. That's silent fits we're talking about, right? Kind of hard to believe, honestly.
He had no reason to believe that an aphrodisiac would work against Orsted if poison didn't. But it couldn't hurt to try. Anything that could affect or distract him was worth a shot, so Rudius bought everything. If that isn't a flag, I don't know what is. Do we need to create the fourth scenario? There's the fourth scenario. We've just created the fourth scenario. Rudius tries everything, and at the last minute, he's about to be killed by Orsted, and he just takes this aphrodisiac and just shoves it in his mouth, and then suddenly, like, the Doki Doki glitters around. We have Ikemen faces going on. The chins start to get really sharp, and he's got Orsted on top of Rudius, lifting his chin up. You got the romantic music playing in the background. Cut away. Next morning, you got Rudius and Orsted laying on the ground. Orsted smoking a cigarette. Oh, this has turned into... Can we say that Rudius right now is it's just desperation? Like, right? If this is like in his train of thought, we're talking desperation. But again, whatever works, I guess. I don't know. Rudius also scouted out potential battlefields. He intended to fight them on his own, with no one else around. A spot outside of Shariah's walls where no one was likely to go to. He found some possible areas from the Adventure Guild before scouting it out. He also had Elise introduce him to an adventurer acquaintance of her, to give him detailed lectures on laying and creating traps. They were a former assassin, with knowledge of techniques for luring people to their deaths. Many traps exploited weaknesses of human psychology in devilishly clever ways. While he wasn't convinced Orsted would fall for these traps, they would still give him something of an advantage, and Elise also gave him personal lessons on close-range combat. While he didn't feel like she was that strong in a one-on-one duel, she was alive for many years, and she had a wealth of practical experience. In her time adventuring, she faced opponents more powerful than herself on numerous occasions. Despite her relatively average physical capabilities, she came out alive every time. That made her knowledge valuable. Way to downplay her and then raise her back up, Rudius. It's like one of those things where I guess he's kind of putting it in a mindset of, like, in a duel. Like a person against person duel. He doesn't think that she's that strong. And again, that can go possibly in the idea of her physicality. But that's kind of thrown out the window with the idea of battle auras. Battle auras break all that stuff. Just the idea of a female beating a male physically through raw strength and muscle is out the door because you have battle auras. In that sense, it was pity that he couldn't find Rajerd, considering everything that he had been through. Still, he couldn't dwell on it. He'd have to manage on his own. Yeah, bet Rajerd has plenty of experience fighting other people. Plenty. A whole war. When practicing, he visualized fighting in the magic armor. Basic attack would be the barrage of stone cannons from his mounted magical implements. He would probably have to keep moving backwards, slowing him with quagmire and deep mist. If he slipped up, Rudius would take advantage. Simple enough. Simple was good. He later unsealed his basement to pray at his altar for victory for the coming battle. 2 months had passed since he killed the diseased mouse. If his future self could be trusted, the virus or germ that caused the petrification syndrome should be long dead. Still, he asked Roxy not to go in the basement for now, and required everyone who did to wash their hands and rinse their mouths out afterward. It was more for his own peace of mind than anything else. I still keep it locked up. just fill it with concrete. Just fill it with concrete and build a new one. He poked around for anything that could be useful against Orsted. The magical items in the basement were mostly junk. Surprisingly, the Frost Nova that he used in the basement hadn't damaged them. Among the items were a hat that splashed water on your head if you tried to take it off, a helmet with a gem on the front that shone like a flashlight, a little box that could belch out a cloud of smoke if you opened it, a short sword with a blade that turned to rubber when you stabbed something, a pair of shoes that would emit a foul odor every time you stepped in them, so on, so forth. He mentioned the idea that he had a lot of like useless magical items in his basement. He just kind of threw them down there. But it's like, yeah, some extremely useless items. Even he put it, like, he'd throw them in his storage just in case, but he didn't see any use in them, except for maybe if he does, like, a street performance. Yeah, like the gag thing with the knife and stabbing somebody. But no, it is interesting, like, I've been curious about the magical items themselves, specifically. And again, magical implements was kind of in that realm as well, and this idea that my really early theories around them was this idea that they were essentially recreating knowledge from another world. Like I think the first one that he ever mentioned was this item that he described that was like a lighter, that you use it, it makes a little flame, you know, for to light something on fire, like a campfire or something like that. But yeah, this kind of adds to that, this idea of like, yeah, I don't get the idea of a hat that you splash your head if you take it off, but things like pretty much like a construction hat, like this helmet that protects your head that has this light on it. It's kind of like an underground construction hat. And yes, the blade that turns into rubber is like this gag thing, like from another world. It does start to kind of make those things questionable. He thought maybe that box could make a smokescreen. Honestly, it'd be nice to replace all of Orsted's equipment with these stupid things, but that would be difficult, and he'd probably just take them off. And then get splashed with water. No, I thought when he was talking about this stuff right here, I was wondering if he was going to like put them into like Orsted's little cabinets at each of the teleportation places and hope that he comes through there. And I'm like, it's a little bit of a stretch. Like suddenly he just walks the door, opens it up and goes, oh yeah, it's all my stuff. All right, I gotta put all this stuff on. Just go, oh, smoke screen. That'd be dumb. That would be a comedy bit. He grabbed a few things at random anyhow before he gave a silent prayer for his victory again. It was always best to ask twice for really important stuff. His preparations were coming together, but the lingering sense of anxiety never went away. Not even for a moment. And that is chapter 6. I gotta figure out if I'm gonna be able to do chapter 7. I knew chapter 6 was long, and 7 is decently long too, so let me see. Yeah, we'll push it. We'll keep going. Chapter 7, Readying for Battle. After a month passed, the magic armor Mark 1 was now complete. It only took 3 months, and he threw a lot of money at it. Pretty much hired a whole bunch of workers to cover all the monotonous tasks. It was 3 meters tall, covered in thick, crude plates of armor he created. It wasn't exactly stylish. The back had a human-shaped hole that you can climb into. Feeding it mana would make it an extension of your body, and the hole in the back could be closed up. There was even a section in the armor with a special magic circle that would eject you if you spoke a certain command. The The Gatling gun was mounted on the right arm. The modified magical implement would fire off stone cannons whenever you wanted to. Feeding mana into it would shoot the very deadliest of stone cannons 10 times per second. What? What? Holy crap, dude. It reduced your average monster into a bloody mist in a blink of an eye. It was his main plan for coping with Disturb Magic. On the left hand was a Stone of Absorption. For the most part, he was going to use Disturb Magic on Orsted, but it was possible that he might not have enough time if it got too hectic. The stone had the ability to dissipate magic already formed, so it could stop anything if he failed to stop it preemptively. It also had a shield that would serve as a melee weapon of sorts. He knew swordsmanship, but not enough to compete with Orsted, so he'd focus on defense and close range. Honestly, slapping it with a huge slab of rock might actually do more damage. I do agree with that. I can kind of see something of a large mass being pushed or at the same time protecting you is a lot more effective against somebody really fast like that has the ability to counter. Yes, again, him knowing all the different fighting styles. Then swinging a sword at him, that's probably not going to do anything. If he literally deflected again, Rijerd and Edis, Rudius' sword's not going to do much. But this is interesting though. He also mounted one of Paul's old weapons at the tip of the shield. I immediately knew what this was. The moment I read that, I'm like, oh my crap. He's got that sword that's magical that can slice through things depending on how much armor it has. It was the one that they talked about. He bought it really cheap because they were trying to cut like something soft like bread, and it wasn't cutting. They thought it was a dull sword. But in actuality, it's just the more tough things get, the more sharp it gets. It was a magic sword that he had given to Aisha, rather than the one that Norn owned. That's surprising. I don't remember him ever saying that he gave that to Aisha. I assume that it was something that Ellen Lease took, because Ellen Lease was using it, so she must have given it back, and he gave it to Aisha. He didn't know if its ability to ignore enemy defenses would work on Orsted, but it was worth a shot. The armor wasn't exactly majestic, and it was painted in a camouflage pattern. At the moment, he had it face down in the outskirts of Soraya.
Whoa, now that's a fearsome suit of armor.
Indeed. Its sheer bulk is quite imposing. I don't know. I might have gone with something a little more sleek. Agreed. To be perfectly honest, I think it looks absurd. It's like some kind of monster, Rudy. Couldn't you have gone with a different color? Cliff and Zenoba looked satisfied, but the women reacted less favorably. It must be something that only appeals to boys. Julie was at least studying it with a fairly satisfied expression, so maybe it wasn't across the board. Julie's happy. And because it's been drilled in her head by Zenoba. If Rudy's made it back, he'd have to check to see if Norn or Aisha liked it. Okay, everyone, I think it's time we get started with the final test run. Sylphie, Roxy, Zenoba, Cliff, Ellenlise, Julie, and Ginger were all in the crowd. Nanahoshi wasn't here. She agreed to help him lure Orsted. So as a precaution for her safety, I can't take him serious when he says crap like this right now. For her safety, as a precaution, we're pretending that I coerced him into cooperating with me. She was probably studying summoning magic with Pedagogus at the moment. There was a chance that Orsted would end up killing her regardless. But when Rudius brought that up, she nodded queasily and accepted the task. He's even acknowledging the idea that I'm going to have her lure him. And I brought up the fact that he might just kill you anyways, but if you're okay with it, sure, let's do it. Again. Oh my gosh, I'm hating Rudy right now. I'm really hating him right now. This is one of those moments where I just hope that he just dies. At this point, I just want Rudius to die. But no, that's just so wrong. Again, one, she knows this is possibly her destiny to work with Orsted to kill the man god, and that she might be stuck in this world because of that. Two, he's having her give up one of her only friends in this world, somebody that protected her, saved her life, kept her safe for a long time and fed, allowed her to get up on her feet in this world. She had nothing. She didn't have the language. She would have died. And here, now, he's having her agree to lure Orsted to him, and if he ends up dying, Orsted might see that she was betraying him, tricking him, and kill her. And yet, Rudius is still using her. Rudy. Again, it might be that last theory and the idea that this is all a facade that Rudius is creating to make Vanguard believe that he's going against Orsted. Roxy spoke up. All right, I suppose I'll look on from a safe distance then. Roxy took Julie off with her and sat in the chairs that were set up for spectators. Her baby bump wasn't conspicuous yet, but you could see it if you look for it. She probably wasn't going to be able to hide it for much longer, so hopefully she'd make the announcement soon. And again, going off to battle with a pregnant wife, waiting for you at home was a classic flag. Okay, no, don't even think about it. The more anxious you get, the harder it is to focus. He was going to win. His wife was going to have her kid, and he was going to name them. And then it was on to baby number 3. That was what the future looked like. Rudius had Sylphie, Zenoba, and Elise charge him at once. Cliff would be using his eye of identification to let him know if he noticed anything. As Sylphie and Zenova stepped forward, Annalise raised her hands in the air and backed away. I'm sorry, Rudius, but I think I'll just be spectating today. I'd rather not get injured. Rudius recalled the diary saying that she got pregnant at some point. Studying her physique, he thought that he could make out a bump. He'd been thoughtless, inviting her to scrap with him. Ah, right, wouldn't want anything to happen to the baby. Why don't you go sit with Roxy? What the hell, Rudy? Another mark. Rudius, what the hell, dude? He's on a roll right now. Rudius is on a roll right now with the bad takes, bad decisions, bad moments. Thanks, Rudy. It's surprising how long it takes for Annalise to kind of speak up about it, but it's like, thanks, Rudy. What a great setting here to bring that up. What a great thing to just drop on everybody. Why don't you let Annalise decide when she wants to bring that up? Why don't you... Stupid slip. It's a joke slip up, I know. It's supposed to be funny. It doesn't make it right, though. What? The baby? Spinning around, Cliff stared at Annalise's belly intensely. Annalise, are you pregnant? Well, my curse has been inactive for a while now. So yes, I probably am. Your curse is inactive, but we've been carrying on as usual. That we have... I love it. Give her the sunglasses. Oh, damn. Annalise is like, yeah, we've been doing that. Wait, it's not Rudius' baby, is it? Are you trying to make me angry, Cliff? But I mean, if it's that hard to believe, why don't you look at it yourself? Maybe that eye of yours can tell you something. Okay. He pulled his eye patch aside and moved in close. He was close to her lower abdomen before slowly lifting her skirt. Oh my. You know we're in public, right, dear? Could you just be quiet for a moment, please? All right. She shrugged her shoulders. To be fair, it was a little obscene the way that he was crawling under her skirt. But it's interesting. I didn't notice that the first time I read it, but yeah. Yes, technically he can use his eye of identification to possibly see that she is pregnant. But she's saying that in response to who the father is. So I'm wondering if there's a possibility that, yes, technically it not only tells him if she's pregnant, but also might tell him, like, DNA. It could tell him the genes. It could tell him who the father and parents are or whatever. Again, we still haven't quite gotten a full explanation of exactly what it does. To be fair, it was a little obscene seeing him crawling under her skirt. We thought that he could do something like that with his wife's later. Sylphie would look good in one of those long skirts. It's true. Cliff reemerged from under her skirt, pale-faced. Seeing the eye of identification served as a pseudo-ultrasound. Maybe pregnant popped up in his vision. What now? What do we do? Oh, nothing in particular. But it's not easy to process, is it? And there's all sorts of... Cliff, I've been through this many times. I'll be fine. You just let me handle things. I'll give birth to a healthy baby. Right. Cliff went from pale to seemingly shell-shocked at the suddenness. In any case, that wasn't very tactful of you, Rudius. Did Roxy let the cat out of the bag? In any case, Rudius... No, she didn't say anything. I just had a hunch, I guess. I see. Well, hopefully you understand why I'd rather not get involved in any brawls at the moment. Of course. Sorry about that. Annalise fluttered one hand in the air as she walked to go sit next to Roxy. The two of them struck up a conversation, and Rudius had an idea of what the topic was, considering Roxy was rubbing a hand over her stomach. The two of them must have gotten pregnant about the same time. Rudius refocused his attention on the test. An hour later, he called it complete. The magic armor performed stupendously. It felt like he was moving at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. He could jump several meters with ease, and punches hit hard enough to leave a crater in the ground. Sylphie struggled to land a single spell, and any that hit just bounced back. Interesting. I'm curious what she's actually using. If she's using something physical, like an earth magic or something like that, that can actually ricochet, or if it's like a magic spell, like that's all magic spells, like fire or something like that, that could actually repel. Is he causing a reflection, or is it just that it's hitting and it's bouncing off? Based on the fact that he's describing the armor itself as almost like him strengthening it, making it hard, I would assume it's just like a ricochet. He couldn't feel any of Zenoba's punches. In fact, he ended up breaking one of his hands on his armor and screamed in pain. Being able to damage a blessed child made him think that he might actually harm Orsted as well. For once, he felt like he'd managed to achieve his goal completely, without screwing up once. That felt nice. Though, he couldn't take credit. Zenoba and Cliff made it possible. I like this. This is technically, for Rudius, a big deal. He doesn't really have many achievements of his own. Like, everything that he does sort of screws up somehow, and has some sort of regret, or some kind of problem with it.
This is the first case that he's built up something for 3 months to have it succeed. Now, granted, you can give credit to him for things like his figurines that he makes that he says takes a lot of time because he's got to create a certain amount every day, just pouring mana into it and making it very hardened. But this is like a big deal because this is something that he's going to need a lot of. This is something that he really badly needs. Maybe this is what it felt like to fight under protection of a battle aura. This kind of power was intoxicating. He was beginning to understand why the likes of Pedagoose and Ettoff had grown arrogant over the years. Very interesting point. And again, that was the whole thing with building this armor, is this idea of creating something like a battle aura because he can't produce a battle aura. Since he can't make this, and he knows that it makes him fast, it makes him strong, makes him inhumanly powerful, the idea that I came up with originally when that was first brought up, I'm like, well, just build a suit. And then he builds it, and it technically does play into his head. Man, having all this speed, having all this power is intoxicating, which is interesting for him to say in lieu of the fact that he has incredibly powerful spells. But again, he's never felt powerful because he was so fragile. Now he doesn't feel fragile, and maybe that's what's intoxicating his head. Did it even the playing field? Does he stand a chance? Yeah, it could work. He could do this. That evening, before dinner, while Nora was visiting, Roxy finally made the big announcement. I think it's about time I told you, everyone, it seems I'm pregnant. Yay! And yeah, I technically play into Rudius's mindset here. It's like, yeah, I already know, so it's kind of hard to get all excited. Yes, we already know this is coming, so it's an eventuality. Super excited, though. Lilia spoke up. Congratulations, how very exciting. While Lilia usually kept her emotions hidden, her face had a big smile on it, and it looked genuine. Rudius thought for a moment that it might have something to do with her feelings about her own daughter's position in the family. I wonder if this is a mistranslation. I don't understand how this fits in. Now, granted, yes, it could be the idea of like she feels for Roxy and her child, just like her situation with her and her child. That technically makes sense. I just don't know why it specifically says her own position, her own daughter's position. I would think it'd be her position. But it seemed more likely that Roxy had consulted her in advance. That would explain why the dinner looked fancier than usual. They were preparing for this. They knew this was going to be a party. Sylphie spoke up. Congratulations, Roxy. It seemed to be the same case for Sylphie. Or possibly, she had a hunch that this was coming. Yeah, based on the previous chapters, yeah. It didn't seem like Roxy told her, but she got the gist. She was accepting the news easily with a warm smile. For some reason, that smile hit Rudius with a flash of deja vu. It was similar to the day that Lilia revealed her pregnancy. There was a difference, of course. Zenith and Lilia were here, and he wasn't exactly cheating with Roxy. Well, that might have been how it started. Yeah, when I read that, I'm like, it was at first. Well, it was how it started, but it was different after that. Unlike Paul, at least they talked things through. Sylphie accepted Roxy. Unlike his old man, he wasn't trying to get a slap in the face from his furious wife. Almost did. It was only because Sylphie accepted that you didn't get a slap in the face. Or see my mistress break down in tears. They'd skip right to the happy ending part. Rudy, do you have any thoughts? It seemed Roxy was a bit unnerved by Rudius' silence. She had an apprehensive look on her face. That hurts. I'm incredibly happy. Thank you, Roxy. Huh? What do you thank me for exactly? She tilted her head quizzically, with a confused half smile. She didn't seem to understand his reaction, but she didn't look upset either. There you go, Rudy. He said the same thing to me when I told him about Lucy, you know. Rudius wondered why that was his default response. Well, I'm glad that you're pregnant with my baby, and I'm glad that you felt comfortable with telling me about it. It feels like proof that you've truly accepted me, I guess. I thought I'd proven that to you quite some time ago, but Rudius picked up Roxy and pulled her over into his lap. He usually tried not to get lovey-dovey in front of Sylphie, but today was an exception. You give me all sorts of gifts, taught me all sorts of things, and helped me many, many times. And now, just to top it off, you're even going to have a baby with me. I don't know what to say other than thank you. I'm so grateful that I met you, Master Roxy. Master Roxy? He dropped the Master Roxy again, what the heck? But yeah, that is an interesting question mark, and the idea that he always says thank you. And yeah, Sylphie had the same problem, and it doesn't quite make any sense. This idea of not necessarily, oh great, congratulations, we have a baby coming. It's just, thank you. It's like, it just feels so weird. Not that I think that's a bad way of saying it. Like, thank you for giving me a child, but you have to kind of elaborate. His follow-up is elaborating on that. You gotta elaborate a little bit. You can't just drop that. And it just reminds me of what comes up, and it hurts. It hurts so bad. Another ding on Rudius. Goodness, it's been a while since you called me that. He ran his hand over her belly. She was probably 3 months in now. He could definitely feel a bump. Despite already going through this with Sylphie, it was surreal. Listen, Rudy, you're my husband now.
and I wanted to have a baby with you. If you feel the need to praise me, I think something like, well done, or good work would probably be more appropriate. Wouldn't that sound kind of arrogant? Come on, please. Can't you let me have my way every once in a while? Well, okay then. Well done, Roxy. Oh, it's nothing really. Is it a dorky little exchange? But it is technically significant. I mean, like she says, can you let me have my way every once in a while? Again, how does Roxy usually see this relationship? As long as I'm in the room. As long as you don't forget about me. As long as I can be over here. I don't care how many wives you have. I don't care what all you do. As long as you can let me be a part of it. She, like future Rudius says, doesn't feel like she's worthy of him. So this is her one moment of saying, okay, I have this thing and you've acknowledged that you want it. Can you please at least give me something? Give me something that I'm asking for once. She's very selfless in the relationship. Not that she goes out of her way to be selfless, it's just that that's inherently how she is. She pressed her head against his chest and snuggled in. She sure seemed to be taking things calmly. He felt like Sylphie was a bit more nervous. Then again, it seemed like Elise and Lilia both knew about Roxy's pregnancy in advance. Maybe she reasserted herself by talking to a lot of different people about her situation. Again, that plays into what she said earlier, when she was walking with him and she was saying, confide in people. Doesn't have to be me, just people. It helps. Maybe she turned to them because of how busy he was. That idea made him feel guilty. He was turning into one of those absentee dads, too busy to pay his family mind. Although it wasn't like he was climbing the corporate ladder. That is a sad reality here. He's been so busy with his other stuff, which is to benefit his family. He was a part of his family. He was all over in his family before all this stuff happened. I mean, like with Lucy, he kind of brings up Lucy as well. He was there. He was constantly spending time with her. He loved spending time with her. She thought she was the cutest thing ever. It's just all this stuff has taken him away. Squeezing Roxy tightly, he buried his nose in her hair. Her scent was wonderful as ever. It put his heart at ease. It's always something about smelling her that helps him. He mentioned that in volume 12, the idea that her scent was like something that just helped him. Ugh, Rudius, yelped Norn, thumping her hands against the table for emphasis. Can you try to contain yourself? I'm going to lose my appetite. Norn was red as a tomato. Yeah, your face shows something else. I should chide it in. Come on, cut him a little slack. Roxy is always so considerate, you know. She deserves some affection tonight. Aisha was leaning forward on the table. Her chin on her hand with a smirk on her face. You're just so cranky because Rudius isn't giving you attention lately, right? Norn yelped in reply. What? No, I am not. Look, I mean, things are a little complicated, right? Think about how Sylphie and Lucy might feel. I just think that they should keep this sort of things behind closed doors. Oh, you're not fooling anyone. You know, dear brother, you really should take some time to catch up with Norn. She's very popular at school lately. Just the other day, some boy stopped by the house and left a letter. Who said you could tell about that? Norn had apparently attracted her first swarm of admirers. Well, she was adorable and hardworking. The boys had good taste. Someday down the line, she'd probably get a boyfriend, get married, and leave the house for good. He wanted to be supportive, but if she fell for some no-good playboy, it would be hard not to intervene. He imagined her bringing home a kid with bleached blonde hair, piercings, and a teardrop tattoo under their eye. Your little sister's teaching me what true love is, man. Can we, have your blessing? It didn't seem plausible, fortunately. But if things turned out that way, he tried to smile politely before freaking out. I'll be nice at first, but then instead of the other gun, it's the staff. He comes out the door. Do you have anyone that you're fond of yet, Norn? Anyone I'm fond of? She blushed before turning away and pouting. Oh, of course not. So, someone was in the picture. Nothing unusual about that. She was getting to that age after all. Whoever it was, he was a lucky kid. Hopefully it's not Rudius. Hopefully she doesn't have a bro complex now. I mean, she had a father complex. I wouldn't doubt that it just extends over to Rudius. Okay, I get the picture. But if things start getting serious, you make sure to bring him over to meet the family. Are you even listening to me? Rudius would size up the boy carefully in Paul's stead. That and dispense with a few fatherly threats. He'll have to drop the old, you'll take my little girl away over my dead body at some point. Anyhow, what about you, Aisha? You're always babbling about how happy Rudius will be when you show him the rice in your garden. Aisha jumped from her chair. Hey, I was gonna make a big announcement about that later. You're horrible, Norn. Serves you right. These two just spat. I like this. Their relationship has changed so much. Yes, they're technically taking jabs at each other, but it's not malicious. This is just kind of revealing things and just being snotty at each other. It's so good. That poke of the cheek is so freaking cute. Oh, we don't get Aisha and Norn pictures often. It's just so freaking adorable. They've grown up so much. They've grown up so much. I guess that technically makes sense. It's hard not to kind of have the perspective of the anime and whatnot for how small they were, 5 or 6 or something like that. Now they're in their teens, but super cute picture. Hold on, Aisha, You harvested the rice from the garden? Well, yeah. I think it's been a little bit too cold, though. So I didn't get that much. But if I get it replanted now, by fall we should... Replanting? Does that mean you harvested the rice seed? It does, doesn't it? Yeah, I did. You're acting a little weird, Rudius. What's the matter? I'm acting perfectly normal. I assure you. What about next year? Will we have another crop next year? Well, by this point in reading, I'm already going, oh my gosh, he's acting way too excited about this compared to what he just did with Roxy. Like, it's the obvious joke here, but it's still like, it's obvious. It's an obvious joke because it hurts. Well, as long as I get more of your soil that you make with your magic, sure. It grows a lot better with that stuff. I'm curious if there's a reasoning behind that. Yeah, technically, Rudius has always mentioned the idea that whatever he creates with his magic is always better, like water and stuff like that, because it's pure. His water is good because it's just water. It's not any kind of chemicals or anything or stuff that's infecting it from around, like in the soil. Same thing with the earth itself. It's just pure soil. But I'd be curious if right here, if there's a reasoning behind specifically the ability for her to plant this stuff in this temperature. It shouldn't plant here. So there's got to be something there that is possibly his magic is keeping the cold weather out. Rudius gently picked up Roxy and sat her down on the floor next to him. That's the other part that hurts. Is like he doesn't just place her on a chair. He just deposited her on the ground. She just kind of like, okay, I'll be over here, Roxy. Roxy's so I have poor Roxy. Okay, I'll be over here. You go, Rudy. I got to snuggle for a second. I'm good. Poor Roxy. He rose to his feet and kneeled before Aisha with arms spread wide. Well done, Aisha. Yay. Oh, should I jump into your arms right now or something? Aisha slowly walked to him, glancing repeatedly to Roxy. She's like, poor Roxy, should I do this? This is probably really inappropriate right now. Then she hopped gingerly into his embrace. He hoisted her in the air and started spinning around. Woo, it's rice, Aisha, rice, woo! He could finally eat rice again. It was a minor thing compared to Roxy's pregnancy. Yep. But he loved rice with a passion. As he spun around, a fresh surge of joy spread through his body. Roxy and he would have a baby. Lucy was going to have a sibling. The kid would be half miggered, but hopefully she wouldn't get bullied or anything. What color would her hair turn out to be? Would Lucy be a good big sister? Hopefully they would get along with Norn and Aisha. I wonder if this was possibly is just a lost in translation thing, assigning gender to something. But yeah, technically right here he's saying, you know, what kind of hair color would she have? Would she get bullied? I think it's probably just it doesn't translate well. It probably doesn't have technically a gender assigned to it in the original Japanese, but there's another side that's kind of wondering if it's like I almost wondered if it was a subconscious Rudius assigning it and going, wait, how did I know that? Maybe there's possibly something that was implied at some point, but it is kind of funny. But yeah, that was a big question mark that I had early on, was this idea of them having the same issue that Sylphie had. Sylphie was afraid of what hair color would come out. If the baby if Lucy would come out with green hair. And that's probably going to be the same thing for, you know, whatever the child's name is from Roxy. He or she could have even the same color as Roxy is still that problem. Because again, they said that there's a tie-in between the two races way back here. And yes, under certain light, her hair turns green. So she could have the same issues. He couldn't wait. What should the name be? Oh, right. There was a taboo about that. A whole bunch of thoughts flooded into his head until he couldn't keep track of them anymore. After the announcement, they had a modest little celebration. Food was nicer than usual, and the conversation was cheerful and energetic. Norn told stories about her time at the student council. Aisha happily reported that people in the market were starting to learn her name. Lucy burst into tears at all the noise, and Sylphie comforted her. Lilia served food quietly with a gentle smile. I can't love every time that he points out that she smiles. I don't know why it just gets me. Zenith ate quietly, but was clearly in a good mood. Roxy was sulking over his reaction about Aisha's news. So he had to work to mollify her. She's over there pouting. One of the courses this evening was salted rice balls. Aisha made them personally. When he asked why she chose rice balls, she explained that Anahoshi told her how to make them. He assumed that was the only recipe that she knew off the top of her head. The girl clearly hadn't spent much time in the kitchen. Then again, the only recipes that he can come up with on the fly are things like rice porridge and a variety of rice balls. I almost imagine Rudius is kind of like the college student that knows how to make ramen noodles into 50 million things.
Aisha's first attempt were round and on the smaller side. The first planting was more of an experiment, so she didn't have much. Still, it was enough for everyone to try. Though, they didn't look too impressed by the flavor, but he savored his joyfully. Aisha had worked hard to harvest the rice, and she pressed it into a ball with her own little hands. How could the result not be anything but delicious? She worked so hard. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and he slowly chewed every bite. Again, pregnancy over here with the rice ball. It does make you kind of wonder, if Rudius didn't know about the pregnancy, I wonder if he would have reacted differently. When Sylvie announced hers, yeah, his reaction was very, very broad and very extended. He had a lot of thoughts about it. He couldn't put it into words. He couldn't figure out what to say. He just knew that he had something overjoyed in himself. And I kind of wonder if that's the case here, that he just couldn't, he already processed it. And so there isn't that aspect. He knew it was coming. His mind was already set. He already had it figured out. It's not a surprise. But even still, you can't argue that back here when he found out about it, it wasn't like he was going through this long thought process. He wasn't even thinking much about it. So it is kind of a skewed perspective here. And it does make sense that you would logically, it wouldn't affect you the same. I'll be happy for Roxy. This success meant they can harvest more next time. More rice, bigger rice balls. But there was no guarantee he'd be around to eat them. Here it starts. Gut punch time. Here we go. Following their meal, Rudius spoke up. I got something I need to tell you, everyone. His sisters and mothers looked startled. Wives bracing themselves. So Zenith was startled? Beforehand, he decided to omit Orsted's name, but he continued. Very soon, I'm going to be fighting someone. Someone who is incredibly powerful. I'm sure that you've noticed that I've been acting rather oddly for the last 2 months. Thank you for not pressing me to explain. I know it wasn't easy for you, and I'm sorry I can't explain in detail. There's a good chance I won't win this fight. Now it starts. When he spoke, surprise and anxiety flashed across their faces. This might be my last meal at this dinner table, in other words. Do you have to fight this person? Norn said, clearly rattled. Isn't there another option? No. None that I know of, at least. The man god hasn't visited since he advised him on the armor. Knowing him, he had been keeping a close eye on him the whole time. I'm wondering if that's Refugin tipping his hand there. To my crazy theory about the idea that Rudius this entire time is trying to fool the man god by not speaking that he's going against him. I wonder if this is that sign right here. That he randomly brings up the man god is watching him as Norn is asking if there's another option. But you said you might not win, right? Why would you do something like that? It doesn't... Norn, listen. Norn was the most flustered and confused person in the room. That was perfectly understandable. Aisha and Lilia lived with him and probably picked up on it. Their expressions were grave, but they didn't look surprised. If I don't come back, I want you to go into my room and... If you don't come back? Why would you even say that? She had a point. He worked out a nice dramatic line, like something out of a story. But why bother with the Doom Hero act? Might as well keep a positive attitude. Okay then. When I do come back, let's have a bath together or something. I don't want to. Take it by yourself. Ouch. Classic Norn. Aisha. Yes? If I don't make it back, I want you to take some of those rice balls you made for me to Nanahoshi too. Oh. She'll cry with joy. I guarantee it. Once you've given her some of those, she'll do anything you ask her to. I don't really want to win over Miss Nanahoshi. Aisha muttered, drooping her head slightly. I'd rather make you spoil me, Rudius. Ugh. This kind of hurts just like the conversation with after Paul's death. It kind of reminds me of that. And it hurts because it's from their... I mean, yes, as a reader's perspective, you're going, well, it's the main character. There's no way the main character could die, right? Chat, don't say anything. But from their perspective, this is him going off to his death. He's pretty much already... He's vocalizing that he's accepted his death. That was sweet. What a lovable kid. He'd have to buy her a present if he made it back. She'd earn a nice big bag. Or a diamond ring. Don't do that. You'll give her the wrong impression. Lilia. Yes, Master Rudius. Take care of Mother, please. I certainly will. However, yes, I'll be waiting for you to return, Master Rudius. No matter how long it takes. Lilia's voice was soft, but firm. They'd known each other for a long time, but she'd never managed to be less formal with him. Aisha was definitely his little sister, but it felt like Lilia didn't consider herself his mother. Hey, Mom, did you hear all that? I've got to go soon, but I'll be back. He thought that he'd seen a hint of sadness in Zenith's face, but it was hard to tell. He had hoped that she'd managed to express her emotions more clearly someday.
I hate the Zenith stuff. I hate the Zenith stuff. Sylphie. Yes? Take care of Lucy. Right. Rudy, go on, what is it? It's nothing. Sorry. He couldn't have guessed what she wanted to say, but he loved her very much. She was hard to read, and that made him anxious sometimes. He pulled her close and whispered in her ears. Sylphie. Yes? This might piss you off a little, honestly. Okay, but if I make it back, let's get real busy. Good grief. Why are you always so naughty, Rudy? She slapped him on the shoulder lightly, and he pulled her in for a kiss. She was cute as heck today, which wasn't new. She was cute by definition. He was going to come back home to her. Telling himself that, he started to feel it was true. Come on, Rudy, everyone's watching. Yeah. He licked and nibbled on her ear. Don't worry, I'll come back. Just be patient, okay? Okay. Sylphie's face was bright red. I'll try my best. With that, he turned to the last person at the table, where the celebration is going for. Roxy. Yes, Rudy? Let's sleep together tonight, okay? But the baby's, well, all right. She hesitated, but then nodded in agreement. That night, Rudius and Roxy took a bath together, before heading to the bedroom, holding hands. Normally, he'd be worked up, but under these circumstances, he couldn't get in the mood. All right, then. As long as you're gentle, That's okay, Roxy. I think we'll skip it tonight. Pausing as she was slipping off her nightgown, she tilted her head quizzically. Come on, have a seat. She sat on the bed, and he took a seat in his chair. I want to give you the details on the situation, and explain what might happen if I lose. Why just me? What about Sylphie? You're willing to trust me and Nanahoshi, but not her? It slipped. It slipped. How do you know about me talking to Nanahoshi? I mean, yes, technically, theoretically, it could be the fact that he keeps going to the fortress and not talking about things that he's learning from Petagoose or something. He's just going there and coming back and not saying anything. Yeah, it does indicate that he's probably talking to Nanahoshi. But yes, Roxy says it's Sylphie's theory, not mine. Sylphie knows. He's going over there to talk to that hussy. Sylphie don't like Nanahoshi. I should have actually killed her. We've been talking to each other about the situation for a while now. Is there a reason why you don't want Sylphie to know all the details? That's a good question, actually. He wondered why he was doing this. For some reason, he didn't want to tell Sylphie everything. Maybe he didn't want her to worry. No, that wasn't it. But why then? Seriously, why? Was this that destiny thing at work again? Well, based on the fact that he's just about to tell her, but at the same time, it could be, yes, that's a possibility. I would not put it past, it is, I don't doubt Refugin whatsoever. This could be something that Refugin is building up. There is something in this future that he's coming up to that, yes, would explain that. Like, no, she wasn't supposed to know about all this stuff. She's not supposed to know about this stuff. And he's breaking destiny right here by telling her. Subconsciously, he never knew why, but for some reason, I keep not telling her. I keep avoiding her when she asks me. Why is that? What if it's the destiny thing? At the same time, this could be him trying to excuse himself. Oh, well, it's that destiny thing. Like, blame everything on that. Like, if he shows up with another woman, Sylphie, sorry I slept with her, it's probably that destiny thing. Like, it's gonna be his new excuse for everything is, it's destiny, sorry, I can't go against it. It just fell in there because destiny. It does make you kind of wonder there. But no, there's a side of me that kind of wonders on a surface level, is it if it's an aspect of him. He keeps bringing up the fact that, yes, she doesn't speak her mind. He doesn't know what she's thinking, and it causes him a little bit of anxiety. And this idea that there's a possibility he doesn't want to tell her because he just doesn't know what she's going to think about it. He doesn't have a clear picture about how she thinks about situations because she's always keeping it bottled in and she doesn't express herself enough. She's a Pandora's box, so to speak. He knows how Nanahoshi's going to react. He knows how Roxy's going to react. He doesn't know how Sylphie will react. So he might be fearful of bringing it up to her. I'm happy that you're willing to consult me, of course. But I feel bad for her at this point. Yeah, you're right, Roxy. I'll go get her now. Glad to hear it. Roxy was right, as always. He was lucky to have her around. Heading to Sylphie's room, he hesitated at the door. Now that he thought about it, he never looked in on Sylphie whenever it was Roxy's night before. What if she was crying to herself or something? Sylphie said it was okay for him to fall in love with another woman. She welcomed Roxy and the family warmly. She even accepted the possibility of Edis joining. But it was possible that she felt very different deep down inside. He doesn't know. She's a Pandora's box. What if she was crying right now? What if she was hammering little spikes into a voodoo doll? What is she? What if she was hammering? What if she was hammering, guys? What if she was hammering? I should look these up beforehand. What if she was hammering little spikes into a voodoo doll? So dumb.
It's so dumb. Seven Seas, please get your crap together. What if she was hammering little spikes into a voodoo doll, biting on a lacy handkerchief, hissing, "That little hussy"? Nah, it was gonna be fine. Surely his sweet little Sylphie wasn't capable of that. Sylphie, can I come in your room for a... He just chomped on my ear just like that. Oh, you should have heard the way that he murmured, "Let's get really busy. What's he gonna do to me? I bet it's gonna be the first night all over again. What do I do, Lucy? You might have a little brother or sister on the way soon." I thought for a moment that she was in there rolling around with Lucy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Anyways, opening the door, he found Sylphie rolling around with her arms around a pillow, kicking her legs in a girlish excitement. She was talking fairly softly, but he could hear every word. It was hard to believe that she was a mother, but it was adorable. It made him tempted to pounce on her. Fortunately, Sylphie wasn't in the room, thankful. She was in Lilia's bedroom. Then again, the room wasn't soundproof. Their eyes met and Sylphie stopped, dead in mid-roll, back on the bed, butt against the wall, legs stretched towards the ceiling, with a creepy, big grin froze on her face. In a gesture of compassion, he closed the door without a word, and they went back to Roxy. It's like, all right, moving on. Sorry to bother you. Going back. Everyone did things that they didn't want others to see, right? Hey, no, Rudy, wait, you've got it all wrong. Don't go. At an impressive speed, Sylphie rushed off the bed and caught the door before it shut. Well, I wasn't going anywhere. Just thought that you might want to retry that from the top. What? No, you don't have to do that. Do you need something? It's Roxy's night, isn't it? Oh, maybe it's one of those days. Do you want me to swap in? She clearly wasn't thinking straight at the moment. She seemed to think that Roxy's period suddenly started, despite being pregnant. You didn't see her like this every day, or often at all, really. Charming as it was, he had to get back on track. I want to tell you about the person I'm going to fight, and what might happen afterwards. Can you come over to my room? Thank you for saying what you're going to do before you bring her over. Because then she'd probably get all dressed up and everything. Hold on, let me take a bath and everything. She fell silent and nodded with a serious expression. He thought that he got a hint of happiness in her eyes as well. He felt a little relieved himself, for whatever reason. He's relieved, I think, because he knows that she's happy because, finally, you're opening up. The two of them listened quietly that he'd be fighting the dragon god Orsted. He was ordered to fight them by someone called the man god, who visit him in his dreams. He explained that if he died, there was things they had to do. First, consider Orsted an enemy, but never challenge him directly. Second, never trust any advice given by the man god. Third, pass down both those instructions to the future generation. He also mentioned that after his death, they should tell the rest of his family everything he told them and try to think of ways to keep each other safe. He did his best to convey how serious the situation was. The three of them started off sitting on the bed, but as it continued, he found himself lying down with Sylphie and Roxy at his sides. Here's that annoying thing. I mean, it technically does bring it up in a minute, but it's like, why wasn't in that instructions, run? Now, granted, it's like how he doesn't know if the man god can see wherever they go, so it doesn't really matter if they go anywhere. But yeah, like a lot of that is protect each other. Be very careful about what you do in the future. There's a chance something horrible might happen to Roxy during her pregnancy. Or Lucy, for that matter. Something horrible? Basically, you're saying the man god might try to do something to us? Yeah. Oh, now I get it. So that's why you kept telling us to keep an eye on the house lately. Sylphie nodded to herself, as if she solved a puzzle. He had a feeling that she was misunderstanding what his motives were slightly. It was convenient, but he may need to say something. Okay, I get it. But you know, Rudy, I can take care of myself. And you don't need to ask me to protect my daughter either. I'd give my life for her in a heartbeat. Roxy added, don't worry about me either. I kept myself alive for many years, and I don't plan on being careless now. I might be weaker than you, but please don't assume that I'm helpless. On second thought, he had no reason to say anything. They were both fired up, and that was all for the best. Yeah, I think they're obviously very capable. I mean, that's an understatement. In the grand scheme of this world, they're extremely capable, extremely talented. But at the same time, you do have to acknowledge the idea that what they're dealing with is a threat that is not normal. Most people live throughout this world just fine, but they're not having the man god after them. In any case, Orsted, the Seven Great Powers, is quite the opponent. Do you think you can win? I'm not sure. I've only fought him once before. What happened? He overwhelmed me. Easily. After all this time, remembering his first encounter made his legs tremble. He beat Rajerd in an instant, easily knocked Edis out of the fight, and stabbed his hand deep into his body. He was terrifying. I don't know, maybe if he does actually defeat Orsted, he'll probably finally get rid of that whole thing. Rudy, are you sure we shouldn't all go together? Nah, I'll do this alone.
I think it gives me the best chance of winning. I'll fire off a lot of huge spells and chip away at his defenses. That does make sense, but you're trembling right now, you know? Yeah. Hey, what? Hands off, Rudy. Stop trying to distract me. In his defense, he wasn't trying to distract her. He just wanted to fill her up. If Orsted killed him, he wouldn't get another chance. God, come on. We're having a serious conversation right now, right? Yep. You know what, Rudy? Lucy's crawling around all over the place right now. She can get anywhere she wants. Lilia said that she reminds her of you when you were a baby. Also, she's picking up a lot of new words. At this rate, I bet she'll be toddling around the place in less than a year. Man, they're flagging the hell out of Rudy's right now. They're flagging the hell. This is all flags, Rudy. Just run. Flagging the whole family. He hadn't been helping out with Lucy at all. He was leaving it entirely to Lilia and Sylphie. Still, he knew how incredibly cute she was, at least. And again, I think he's being a little bit harsh on himself right here because he's always been a part of it. It's just not right now. Right now, he's got this focus and it's distracted him. I'm really looking forward to that, Rudy. Me too. If it seems like you're going to lose, make sure to run for it, okay? Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to get away from him, though, but I'll try. That is the option. I mean, if it doesn't work out, get the hell out of there and then just deal with the situation with the man god. But, like pretty much already assumed before, and what Nanahoshi's kind of really put on his head too, is the idea that he's ruthless. He's going to keep going. I don't think Orsted's going to give up.
Yeah, I was right. You were working for the man god.
Reese thought, was Lucy old enough to understand what was happening around her? If he died in battle, she probably wouldn't remember the face of her dad by the time she grew up. What would that feel like? It was hard to imagine, but maybe he could find a tactful way of asking Aisha. That makes sense because both Aisha and Norn are the same situation. I mean, they both seen Paul the same time before they went up, but again, that's technically not a question he wants to ask Norn right now, but maybe it's possibly something he could ask Aisha. Hey, Norn, I know you're really upset about this whole thing that I brought up at dinner, but can you tell me what you think about this situation? What does it feel like to not know your dad's face? Roxy spoke up. Rudy. He turned to grope her, but she seized his hand before he could. Her grip was impressive. Ow, sorry, I know. We're having a serious conversation. I'm glad I met you, Rudy. I'm glad I married you, and I'm glad I had a child with you. I've never been happier in my entire life than I am right now. To be honest, I never thought I'd find this kind of happiness. Right. But there's a downside, I suppose. If you go off and get yourself killed, you'd be making me sadder than I've ever been before. Right. It's a little embarrassing for me to say this sort of thing, but Roxy paused for a moment, inhaled deeply, and finished her sentence. Please, make me happy, Rudy. He hadn't made the wrong choice after all. He was going to fight for them and come home to his family. All doubts he had finally evaporated. A few days later, he set out from the magic city of Soraya. He was entirely alone. And that is chapter 8. Woof. I do have to admit, when I first read that, a lot of this stuff got me. Not just the Zenith part, but like Aisha, that whole statement. Technically, this whole part right here with Roxy saying that she's never been happier than she is right now. The offset to the whole thing. And again, that is probably something, honestly, somebody like a Midgard would actually have to deal with. Like, what happens if you marry anybody but somebody within your own tribe? You have to deal with that aspect that eventually you're going to outlive them. Ellenly's the same way. Eventually outlive them. And that is a tragedy. You're so happy right now, but is it worth it? Is it worth getting involved with this person because eventually you will experience true sadness, separation? And it is kind of one of those, honestly, it's the give and take. Roxy, in falling in love with Rudius, she accepted that. And right here, she's having to accept that again. This idea that I am so happy right now, but I know that I might possibly be losing it. And her response to that is, make me happy. If you go off and you die, it's going to make me incredibly sad. So, make me happy. Again, this is like the two very rare cases in this one chapter of Roxy saying something that feels like it's out of character. She's saying, I want this. Saying, I want this. I don't normally ask for things, but saying, I want these things. Give them to me. It's cute. I like seeing that change in Roxy as a character and really going after things. But, pretty heavy stuff. Pretty heavy stuff. Definitely building things up. So, very interesting, though. At the very end here, saying that he left entirely alone. Where is Eris? So presumably the time frame that we get here is that, okay, Rudius at some point said, all right, gotta get ready. Goes immediately over to the Adventure Guild, sends a letter. That was the first thing he did.
That was the first thing on his priority list. I'm going to send this letter to Edis. Get that over with. Send that letter out. And he apparently paid a lot of dollar. He spent a lot of money to have this express shipped to Edis. Guy arrives there immediately. Here it is. Thank you so much. Don't know how long it took him. The gauge that we get is that Nina, I believe it was, told Edis that it's going to be like a month's trip. Even if you're going fast, it's going to be a month's trip to get to Shraya. She knows where they're going, knows where Rudius is at, going to go there, going to go see him. It's going to take a month. Now, the assumption is that the reverse is true as well. And depending on the weather. I mean, the weather can change these things. And that could be definitely the thing that shifts everything here is weather. Simply, weather happens. A blizzard kicks up, suddenly it takes 3 months. But, assuming what she said was true, month there, Edis gets a letter, month back. At least 2 months. At least. Rudius then proceeds to make the magic armor, which he classifies as taking 3 months. What happened? Did she get caught up somewhere? What? She knows where she would be able to figure out where he's at the moment she got there. Go to the Adventure Guild or something, or some government group or whatever that has his address, whatever. Maybe it's on the letter. It just says Rudius Greyrat and Edis Greyrat. Didn't specify an address, but maybe possibly on the letter as well. But there's a way to get to him. She knows where to get to him, and 2 months. So it is very curious that she's not here. I would assume that she would make it here before he leaves. If, especially, again, it took him 3 months to make the armor. So, I don't know, maybe opening up chapter 8, it says, I was entirely alone, and then suddenly, here comes Edis, like, wait, Rudius, okay, maybe I wasn't entirely alone. It's odd, it's very interesting. But the question mark then becomes, okay, if Edis does show up in Shraya, how does she figure out where Rudius goes? How much did Rudius tell them of his plan? I'm sure somebody there would possibly know where he's going, because again, he's been trying to figure out a place to go. He's setting up an ambush. The assumption based on what he's saying, he's not revealing everything, and I think that's the purpose of the next coming chapters to be more exciting, is Refugio not explaining everything that Rudius has planned. But it could be simply the idea that maybe possibly Nanahoshi has Petagus, one of his men, get a letter to Orsted that says, Orsted, I need your help. Can you help me with something? I'm over here east of Shraya, whatever. I'm out here. Please come out here to find me. And in that location is where Rudius set up a bunch of traps. Orsted comes there, steps on a couple of them. An aphrodisiac flies into his face and splashes in his mouth, and he suddenly gets all, doki doki for Rudius, whatever happens. So a place has been established. I'm getting ahead of myself. A place has been established. I was going to say that a place has been established, and Rudius is going towards there. And that could be something that Elise, Sylphie, Roxy, somebody knows. And so when Edis finally shows up at the front door and says, where's Rudius? He's going to fight Orsted. Where the hell is he? And they go, okay, well, he's right here. And then she's back on the horse and he's gone. That's, I guess, my assumption that's going to happen because she didn't catch him before he left. But again, that's just me assuming that she's got to be a part of this fight. My assumption, again, that she's got to be a part of this fight. But, who knows? Maybe she's not. And Rudius fights Orsted solo. Could be. But yeah. Quite a set of chapters. Like I said, this is easily like the weakest 2 chapters of the volume so far. I do appreciate like the whole thing around the man god and him pretty much saying, yes, all this crap's BS. I've been BSing you, just like always. Yes, the goodbyes technically from the family does hurt, but at the same time, I don't really give it too much substance there because I just don't think anything's going to happen to Rudius right now. Something can happen to the family. Again, that could be a backwards flag, and I just don't know it yet. But I'd assume that everybody's going to be fine, and Rudius is going to go out there and fight alone. The fact that he's going alone does make it more easier to kind of stomach a lot of this stuff. So it does make these 2 chapters kind of weak, except for, yes, Roxy and Elise having baby. I love Cliff's response. I'm so happy for them. But again, it easily the weakest chapters. And I think it's because it's so much setup. And the setup stuff kind of does drag out. Just everything that he's planning on doing, but then possibly not doing. Him trying to figure out the situation, which he should be trying to figure out. He's got to play all this stuff into his head. But anyhow, that is this Mushoku Mondays. I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, greatly appreciate everybody that dropped by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys so much for dropping by. As per usual, greatly appreciate everybody that supports channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that kind of stuff. Just got a batch of new Patreon supporters, and I greatly appreciate it. It's you guys that makes this all happen. But until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. But she seized his hand before it could touch. But she seized his hand before she could. I'll fire off shots. I'll fire off a lot of huge spells and chip away at his fit. I'll fire off a lot of huge spells and chip away at his. On second thought, I don't really want to win over. No, just how. I don't really want to win over. I don't want to win over. I really don't want to. I don't really want to. And Sylphie comforted. Hopefully, they would get along with Norsh. Hey, I was going to make an announcement. Hey, I was going to make a big announcement. Hey, I was going to make a. But it seemed more likely that Roxy had consulted her in her advice. But it seemed more likely that Roxy had consulted her in advice. He's also ruthless. It just didn't. A month passed since Rudia spoke out about. A month had passed